I know AI governance is probably not something that you think about every day, but as the godmother of AI said, AI is everywhere, but it's also invisible, right? So AI is one of these things that we use every day, but we don't actually see it, whether it's in a TSA where you're getting your facial recognition done or you're using your QR code, it's all AI. But AI governance is actually something that we should care about because it affects us very deeply. So I've got some really amazing panelists here. I'll have them do a quick 30-second introduction of their background and introduce themselves. We'll start with you, Debu.
Sure. I'm Debu Chatterjee. Currently, I'm the CEO and founder of a startup called Confur. This is all about, the rage is agentic AI, so I will call it agentic AI product for regulatory framework. Prior to this, I was the founding AI head of ServiceNow. So whatever AI you see in ServiceNow has been built by me and my team. And I have done some work which is actually out of acquisition of my previous startup called DS Continuum. And then I actually have an enterprise experience with Oracle, Informatica, and Fair Isaac.
Muddu?
Hi guys, I'm between you guys and the chai out there. Hopefully the chai is good, Amar. We'll make it. There's no regulation for chai, right? Again, my name is Muddu Sudhakar. I'm a founder of ISRA, but I'm here to talk about AI regulation, make your evening very innovative and interesting for the next half an hour.
This is Amar. I'm the founder CEO of Protecto. Protecto is an AI guardrails company. We protect the data, the privacy, data security, and compliance for AI agents and AI agent frameworks.
All right, so we're gonna have a little bit of fun here. So I'm gonna make a couple of AI truisms. Okay, so for those of you here and on the panel, just give me a thumbs up, okay, or neutral, or thumbs down, okay. First one is, LLMs are the fastest depreciating asset in the world. Okay, agreed? Because you got to retrain it every day, right? Okay, second truism. English language is going to be the fastest programming language. Good, okay, we've got some agreements here. Number 3, explainability of an algorithm is going to be a critical requirement for the enterprise. Would you agree with that? Right, explaining what the hell is happening in the algorithm. Okay, good. Oh, you don't agree with that, okay? So we're going to use that as a panel discussion, okay? Yes. All right, number 4, bias. Okay, bias in algorithms reflects society. All right, man, we have a lot of agreements. Oh, you don't agree, okay, we'll get to that. Okay, wonderful. So remember what you disagree on, okay? So that's what we're going to talk about. All right, what else? Cost of inferencing is going to be 3 times as much as the cost of retraining or fine-tuning an LLM. Okay, so we have some agreements, okay?
You put it like this, huh?
Wow, okay, you think inferencing costs are going to be lower. All right, I'd like to know a little bit more about that. Okay, one last one. Let's see. What else is an AI truism? AGI, right? There are like 5 or maybe 10, 12 different types of AI, right? From AGI to superintelligence AI to neuro AI and so on. That like utility, right? We won't be able to distinguish between a real and a fake 6 months from now. Okay, maybe. I was just showing when the other previous panel happened, and I forget, there you are, right? There was actually an actual case in India that just happened where the Supreme Court Justice, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, was deep-faked, right? Was it a deep fake? It was just faked. It was just faked. Cheap-faked. Where a very prominent businessman was swindled for about 7 crore rupees, right? And it's a fully staged Supreme Court staged scenario where the guy actually gave up money, right? So now moving back to real panel here, right? you disagreed on a few things. So let's start with the first thing that you disagreed on, and then we'll have Muddu give the counterpoint. Go ahead.
So I disagreed on the point of explainability being very key, or I wasn't exactly what the question was, but the importance of explainability in this whole.
Explainability is key before you deploy an algorithm.
Yeah. So I have a very totally different view, and this view comes from the point of what you should be compliant and governed to. So if you take any company, the organization who gets benefit out of AI, they're actually not consuming AI models. Explainability is attached directly to a model, the way the model functions. Really what you're doing is you're consuming applications. Application is a unit of consumption in an organization. And I'll give you the example of chatbot. Chatbot is a classic, ubiquitous AI application everybody is familiar with. And a chatbot typically would consist of 5 or 6 different models. For example, there could be a sentiment model, there's an entity model, and language understanding model. Maybe some of them has been taken over by LLMs, and you just have one LLM model. But a customer chatbot is very different from employee chatbot. The benefit that brings in is very different from the risk that brings in too. And they're trained and fine-tuned on different set of data, because what a customer chatbot does for an organization is very different from an employee chatbot. So explainability is very tied to a very model, which is maybe a sentiment model, entity model. But what really you want to understand from the risk and governance point of view is how the application uses it and what underlying constitutes pieces of assets which are pulled in when the application is being used and deployed.
Muddu, you have a different viewpoint.
Okay, first, before we go into that, let's talk about the panel itself on the regulation side, right? Look, my views, I'm sure all of you guys are thinking about what we have to say, or each of you have made a different opinion. My view is right now, somebody in the previous panel talking about jobless growth. AI is right now not even creating enough jobs, it's actually killing the jobs. There should not be any regulation. If there's anything, technology industry should be like the wild, wild west. Throw the regulations out, let's make enough money, guys. You're in Silicon Valley to make money. Screw all these things, regulations, etc. And there's no each state regulations, right? There's no opportunity for that. I want more people to clap on that. Like, we are here in Silicon Valley. What the heck are we talking about regulation? We are a technologist. You want to talk regulation, go to the government, DC, or somewhere in Washington, DC. So with that as a background, what I want to say is, look, I think what Governor Newsom has done is a good job to cancel the bill. But he did sign 2 bills, if you guys are familiar with what happened. He signed the bill saying that any Gen A application, if it's used in terms of communication for patients, they have to put that in the communication so that it came from AI. Second thing is, they can't use insurance canceling, denying your policies with AI. He signed that also. So he might have canceled something, but that is also signed. So a good thing is, he's actually stopping all this AI regulation, but we need to do a lot more. If somebody want to do regulation, let's give it to China and India. Let Modi do the regulation. Let him go suffer, right? Like, my view of the world is, look, we have to, regulation is going to trifle all innovation. We should not. I mean, we are at the early stages. You're talking about power consumption, you're talking about inference, cost. So I think talking about the regulation is the wrong thing to do at this early stage.
Okay, so I'll let you, Amar.
I kind of agree with what Muddu is saying. We are very early in the game, so your government also knows, right? Our government, China, India, everybody knows. So nobody is regulating because that'll kill the innovation, you'll lose the race. I'd rather win the race than regulate later, is what governments will do. But there are some other underlying regulations that already exist, right? That protecting patients, protecting consumers, that will continue to exist, right? We are still talking about the new regulations that won't affect, right, AI regulations, but HIPAA regulations will still be there. We have to operate in that paradigm. So regulations do matter because our applications will be regulated because it's HIPAA. Our regulations, like GDPR, will affect our AI applications. So we cannot come out of it. Hopefully there will not be new AI regulations, but existing regulations will continue and apply. That's first point. The second point is, in terms of the explainability, I'll give you a personal example. So I was once asking ChatGPT, explain the term, and it gave a beautiful answer with the formula and everything. I was like, wow, I mean, this exists. Then, for a second, I thought, let me go try Gemini. And tried Gemini, and said, oh, no, I don't know what this term means. Then I came back to ChatGPT and asked, where did you find this? It said, oh, based on your question, I thought this is what you meant and created this formula for you. I was like, wow, so you don't know, the real thing you had to ask is, what is the source? What is the data? The explainability is how, not explaining the model, how it functions. Explainability was, what is the source, right? That's a simple question. So explainability becomes very, very, very critical, right?
Let me jump in on that. So
yeah.
I have a little different opinion. Look, I started my company, I started in 2017, guys. When I started back then, no VC wanted to invest in AI company. Remember, it's 2017. Debu's company just got acquired in 2016, or like 2016 December at ServiceNow, right? I left ServiceNow to start Isera. You have to understand, back then everybody wanted to explain how the model does, what does your NLP does. One thing has changed is October 2022, exactly 2 years back. Once Sam Altman invented OpenAI, nobody wants any explanation. As long as it does a good job, as it's natural language, everybody's buying. It's hotcakes right now. If you can get a good solution, people buy it. Nobody wants to know what's the reason. If you have to get down to that, that's during a POC process. But in production, nobody cares about explainability, etc. That's one point I want to make. I think you made some other point, I forgot what it is.
Existing regulation.
Yeah, existing regulations. I think, look, in a month from now, we'll know, or 3 weeks. If Trump wins, no more regulation. The existing regulation will be gone too. It'll be even more wild, wild west. So it all depends on who is winning the game. So this whole panel will be widened after a month.
So can I carry on this? This is actually a very interesting point, and I thought the initial panel name was AI in regulation. In fact, my marketing team is actually broadcasted this as AI in regulation. And I started my company, and so here I'll do a little bit of pitch of my company. I actually came out of, you mentioned ServiceNow. I came out of ServiceNow because I realized that governance and compliance were important for AI software. So I started my company to do AI governance. But the reality is that, which is what the point was about, that regulations already exist. There are a lot of regulations, and regulations are only going to increase. And they are, the same regulation which is being constructed at the national level are being reconstructed at the state level. So the problem at hand is to be able to solve these extra impediments coming your way, which is really slowing down and putting the friction in innovation in a very standardized way, so that becomes a non-issue. It becomes a part of your DNA. You just do it, and then you only work on innovation and the innovative use cases. The velocity of the innovative use cases coming out of organizations only increase. And that is my plug for my company, so I had to do it.
I actually disagree, guys. Think about it this way. Look at blockchain, Bitcoin, all these things have done well because of not regulated. And there may be still some regulation exists maybe for them. Same thing should happen with AI. Just leave it open, let it mail wild, wild west. Create enough AI autonomous robots, humanoids, let them all fight it out. Let's enjoy it. We can all have chai together. At the next AI summit of Amar, we should be sitting there, and the AI panel should be with robots fighting each other.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, in all seriousness, right? Would you believe open AI systems will ultimately win because they're all open source, or do you believe closed AI systems where you don't have to explain why so if you actually ask the question for OpenAI, or I don't know if the ON solves it, but if you ask, is 3.9 greater than 3.11? You know what the answer tells you? Now, I don't know how many of you are good in math, but sometimes it'll tell you 3.11 is greater than 3.9. It'll give you a perfectly good explanation as to why 3.11 is greater than 3.9. Or if you can ask it, it's a very famous prompt. You say, how many R's are there in strawberry? It will say 2. It'll give you a perfectly good explanation, even after you correct it and say, no, there are 3 R's in strawberry. So the question for you all is, okay, if you don't govern and have governance around AI and AI models, because ultimately AI has basically 3 things, right? It has data, which you need to have sovereignty and governance over. It needs to have algorithms on which you're supposed to have some level of regulations, then obviously compute, right? The compute already, the Biden administration and other administrations, hopefully, have already said, look, you can't send chips, and you can't send high-end chips to countries that would probably create, right, a AI-like war, which has probably already begun. What, in your view, needs to happen around whether closed systems win, open systems win, and how many, and what part of data and what part of models should be governed? We'll start with you, Muddu.
All right, I'll give you, I'm very prescriptive on this. Look, first of all, when the dust settles, there'll be only 2 or 3 aircraft carriers. It's already clear that OpenAI is winning the race. There's no Anthropic. If you're writing Anthropic, you'll be a loser. You're done, right? Then in the OpenAI, open space, maybe Llama 3, that's it, right? There's Microsoft will exist, maybe Google will exist with their Gemini, Vertex models. So that's already 4. So I don't think you have too many players in this space. Like all the co-hairs of the world, they're all gone. I mean, nobody even talks about them. So the question that comes down to is not the open or closed, there'll be 4 or 5 models that will exist as a foundation models. Debu?
Yeah, so what he is pointing out is very true. So it's not a question of open versus closed. And again, I come back to the point that it is all about how it is being used within your organization. So when you're using it within an, say, HR application, the notion of what a fare is very different from what you're using in the loan application, where the notion of fairness is very different. Now, to make that qualification whether I'm doing the right thing or not, which is why governance is all about, you really have to be able to have a way of looking at in this case, the compute being is not chip compute, but the model which is doing the computation, and be able to introspect it for certain things. So the key thing which is needed is basically the transparency. Transparency builds trust. So if these closed and open models provide a way to introspect them with the vectors in which the application is being used, then you essentially get to be able to trust the application, and hence it can be used within the regulatory purview of, say, HR or say, HUD, which creates regulations around, say, fair lending practices.
Amar, do you have a view on this?
So I think in the near term, closed will continue to win. But the foundation models, yes, handful will be there, but the variety of models will change. Like you don't need a truck to commute. You probably need a motorcycle or a smaller car versus a large truck to haul. So you don't need LLM for everything. There are small language models coming. There is very specialized models coming. So the foundation models might appear in different forms for different activities. So it's not like this one giant model is going to solve every problem I throw at it. That I don't believe it, right? There'll be smaller, efficient models for efficient workloads will emerge. And again, it'll be likely from these top players, but it can be open source too.
So, since you believe in the wild, wild west of regulation, Muddu, right? Let us say, you're in the consumer lending business, and your algorithms are black boxed, and you suddenly realize, post-audit, that you've been denying, let's say, home lending or car loans to a certain group of people because fundamentally your algorithms are biased. It's coming back to the biased algorithm. So if biases in AI reflect biases in society, right, because we're writing the algorithms as humans, how would you resolve that with or without regulation? So we'll start with you and then maybe take a different view.
At the end of the day, first is, as I was saying, the governor new law that he signed for healthcare, at least you can't use AI to deny or anything, but you can use it for non-healthcare. That was the whole law. I forgot the name if you see what he signed. But I think the point is businesses, like I spend a lot of time with insurance companies, they will figure it out whether to use AI where. Sometimes AI may not solve the problem, it may go wrong, it may have hallucinations. So I don't think there's any one rule set all by these guys in terms of where to use. They'll easily solve the problem in terms of improving the algorithm, doing a fine-tuning, etc. So I don't think there's any one size fits all there. I don't think it's just a continuous learning. People are applying already. They're already using it. All these companies are using it. So it's not like there's some one size fits all in terms of how to solve this problem.
Okay, then I would argue that, then you're better off with rule-based AI as opposed to data-based AI.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's why many companies today use the rule-based, intent-based, and intentless. They're using combination of everything.
Right. That seems to be the right answer.
That's
is
today's
use the best
act.
one.
It'll evolve into a different level as you go on, but it's a continuous journey.
Okay.
So I actually looked at the tapings of the last AI summit, which was held in April, and Vishal Sikka was giving a closing keynote speech here. He actually came in, he said, look, I'm in this building, the Stanford the club, I think, faculty club, and some structural engineer actually certified that this building stands. That's why I'm safe enough and I'm standing here without worrying about the roof is going to fall or not. So essentially, whether you like it, whether it's a governance, regulations created by state or the national bodies or whatever, you still do need some way to ensure that what is being produced in the AI and the software world is actually usable and can be trusted. So in this scenario, unfortunately, software industry doesn't have somebody like a professional engineer who's certified to actually say what things are working or not. They probably should have it. If you have a PE, then you probably won't read regulations. And that's my very provocative.
So I disagree with him. Imagine this is 1800s when railroads are there. There's no regulation for building a railroad. So AI today is 1800 of where we are in industrial revolutions. So we cannot be regulating now.
Yeah.
200 years from now, we should talk about regulations. Maybe we all will come back. Amar, you'll have another event 200 years from now. We'll have an AI summit for regulation. But for next 200 years, no regulation, guys. Let's go make money.
Right. So when you think about bias, the bias doesn't reflect the society, it reflects the data and the algorithm, right? So it's not like, for example, today you ask a question about Trump versus Kamala Harris. There was a big controversy that Alexa or Google is giving different results. It doesn't mean that the country is that way, right? 50% still supports this close election, right? 50-50. So it cannot be one way, right? But the algorithms are one way, right? So the algorithms reflect the underlying data. So it doesn't mean that it reflects society. That part I disagree with your point, that one. On the bias question, see, we are thinking LLM regulations, LLM AI regulations. AI is finally transformed into applications. It is context specific. Not everything is risky. You're writing an email is not risky as patient prescription. So applications level, the risk changes because of the context. So the regulations will come at the application level because of the industry, not at the LLM level, right? That is ridiculous. That's the reason, one of the reasons that the reason was rejected, because what is a frontier model, right? Well, we don't know. So the regulations will come at the application at the industry level. We cannot control it. I wish there's no regulation, but the regulations will come. That's what government does, right? So they will bring it up. So there the risk, to mitigate risk, because some are risky, some are less risky. Well, so mitigate that, the regulations will come.
So let me tell you why the application level argument doesn't work. So I don't know if you saw the news today. There were some internal papers from TikTok that was leaked, right? So clearly, just like tobacco companies, right? Just like when you say, you know what, we should allow, smoking ads to be available in movies and ads and pictures, wherever. But even though tobacco companies knew, right, that it was harmful at some point and was causing a remarkable pressure on healthcare system. Similarly, right, we all knew how addictive applications like TikTok was. So there were white papers and internal emails figured out at TikTok today that clearly showed that it takes 35 minutes and 250 specific videos to train our children, right, some of us have children here, to get them to be addicted to TikTok, right? Now, it's true for a whole bunch of other applications as well, including some of the other social media. So when you don't have regulations, right, at a generic level, right, and say, look, we'll figure it out application by application, it's too late. So as a lot of philosophers have argued, right, if you haven't heard of Yuval Harari's recent, his view is that humans are no longer top of the value chain, right? Would you agree or disagree with the statement that cat's out of the bag, and now the only question is prevention of how much damage AI could do? So we'll start with you.
No, I don't think so. Look what happened with YouTube. YouTube is still not regulated. Facebook is still not regulated. You're talking about TikTok is still not regulated. So I think, look, AI people are talking, but I think the society and business people will come together, make sure that thing will be regulated. It's not going to do any damage. You talk about hallucination. You're saying ChatGPT cannot tell the difference between 3.9 versus 3.11 or something. It is so bad, man, out there. What do you want to regulate this? This is crap. Not all the algorithms are doing good job. Why do you want to regulate some when the results are so crappy? We are 1800. We are not in 2024, so better not touch anything. Let it continue, let it improve. We have issues in terms of regulations. We are talking about power problems. We are talking about data sets. He's talking about, what is our data sets being too large, too small. So I don't think that's an issue at all.
So your point of view is that you should just unleash innovation,
Just unleash it for
see
next.
where it leads, right? And then figure out if it needs any form of regulation at all.
As I told you, 200 years, let it go. Next 200 years, let it leave it AI to regulate, do its job, and then come back and talk regulation.
All right, that's pretty radical. Yeah, go ahead.
So what he's saying is unleashing the technology to create new, say, I'll just say transformer technology. Right? Ultimately, it's a new set of pickaxes which can be used to create something different. So and since I'm talking about regulation, and since we are here, if you take the Europe EU AI Act, it doesn't really prevent you from unleashing technology. It actually applies itself at the way the use of AI within the purview of the actual outcome you're going to go forward is being governed. So they will say these are the areas in which it is prohibitive. These are the areas in which you can use it, but you must ensure you test it against the fundamental rights of a human who is being affected by that particular product. And in certain other cases, it is considered to be a technical application, which is a moderate risk. In fact, as I speak, I am actually, I have a prospect in Amsterdam who sent me a set of questionnaire, which I need to do as a part of a vendor qualification purpose. And they literally use the same rubric to qualify me as and my application actually is falls in a technical category in that rubric. And it is eye-opening for me because I am essentially doing the same thing, but they are using for me for a different part. But it was interesting to see that they are actually getting into that, using that same, the rubric coming out of a regulation, which is more like a policy here. Of course, you'll have to follow it in every place. But that allows the buyers and the users of the system to have some comfort level of what they're using is not very bad.
Yeah. So I agree. We are very early. Regulation, skill, innovation, right? And also, it weirdly affects the market, all the regulatory capture, everything. So completely agree on that point. So we are very early in the AI game. Regulation kills. So then India, China, or somebody else will win. So continue to not regulate is the best strategy. But what will eventually happen, as a business people, what I'm thinking, eventually will happen is some regulation will come at some point because some risk is existing because healthcare versus insurance versus generating and marketing email are not the same
It
spectrum.
won't happen in our lifetime, guys. Let's enjoy. We all will make money. We'll all go home happily. We'll all go to heaven. So don't worry about regulation.
I hope so.
But let me make one comment, guys. Sure. So one thing he talked about, take Europe, for example. Europe is putting that UI Act. I'm not a fan of it. But they still want to use our Llama model. They still want to use OpenAI. So that's why I tell my European customers. So they want our data trained in US, made in America to be used in Europe. So they want American data, they want American-made OpenAI, they want Llama 3 made in America with our data sets, use it there, but fill their regulatory form. So tell your software, screw Europe.
I need
Anyway, quick question, and then we'll wrap up.
Great panel, very provocative. I'm from a law firm. Somebody has to stand up for regulation.
There you go. I'm glad you're on my side.
Actually,
I have a job for you. Leave your job, I can get you a job.
absolutely. We love you all. I know that you hate regulation because you have to pay very high fees to us. But I think actually regulations have created more innovation if you look at in history. You know, if we don't have Clean Air Act, we would be still not being able to see each other because that has created more innovation in automobile industry, it's created more innovation in chemical industry, it created more innovation in every other industry. If you look at Clean Water Act, again it is, otherwise we would be drinking still muddy water. If we don't have product liability laws, every other plane would be flying off, dropping down, right? So a lot of innovations have happened because of regulation. And I think I'm not saying about whether we should regulate AI or not, but there are places where we have to think about how we can use regulation to create more innovation, because historically we have used regulation to create innovation.
Got it.
So,
So to
my-
wrap up, thank you. So I think there are two modes, right? So if you use an analogy of a car, regulations can be a brake to stop things, so regulations can be a brake that can regulate speed. So it looks like we're somewhere in between. But with that, I thank the panel and I appreciate all the opportunities. So, good job, Bob.
Thank you, PV, for hosting, for moderating it. This is good. This actually.
Hello. Okay, guys, we'll have a very short tea break, and then there's a really fun panel coming up, followed by an amazing talk by Chandar, and then our closing keynote by Yamini of HubSpot. So get your drinks and come right back.